8 on your side, your local election headquarters. This is Battleground Florida, Sunday edition.
Good morning. I'm Evan Donovan. Welcome to Battleground Florida. In a new poll out by St. Pete Polls, friend of the show and highly regarded pollster Matt Florell this week, Florida Agriculture Commissioner Nikki Fried is now in a dead heat with Ron DeSantis in the race for governor next year. This week, I got a chance to do an extended sit-down interview with Fried, so I started with the question everyone wants the answer to. You've been very outspoken about Governor DeSantis and his response to the COVID pandemic. Let's just get this out of the way right from the start. You're the top statewide elected Democrat. Everyone expects you to run for governor next year. Will you be challenging the governor?
You know, every single day I wake up and I see another horrific action by the governor, and it's no longer just anger, it's sadness of what our state is going through and that we have no leadership. He's completely thrown up his hands, like victory with mission accomplished. It's not talking about the pandemic anymore. It's barely even talking about the vaccine anymore. And as our only statewide elected Democrat, more and more people every single day are asking for me to throw my name in the hat because we need to make a change. And it's not just about the governor. It's really about how the state of Florida has been governed in the last 25 years. I mean, look how many constitutional amendments that the people of our state have passed, and the legislature has not listened to the will of the people and have done something to mess up the constitutional amendment implementation. And so, as you know, somebody who is seeing this day in and day out, this is something we're taking very seriously. We're looking into it. I've got talking to a lot of family, a lot of friends. It's all hands on deck. It's not just me making a decision one day that I'm going to run for governor. It's really talking to the people around me, making sure that this is what they want. This is not about me. This is about having a better future for our state. So we're taking this very seriously. We're looking into it. Hopefully we're making some decisions really in the near future, because the state of Florida deserves better than this.
You've not ruled out a possible second term as agriculture commissioner.
That's correct.
Let's at least talk timing. By when would you make a decision if you were going to?
You know, quite honestly, I mean, the timing is on my side to make this decision. I'm somebody who always follows my heart, follows my gut. I will know when, you know, the timing is right, and also know when what the right decision is, and listening to the people of our state and hearing their frustration. So, you know, we're looking, so just for my own personal peace of mind, hopefully by the middle to end of the summer. But quite honestly, it's, you know, we're just trying to do our job every single day. That's what I get motivated by. What gets me out of bed is to make sure that I'm serving the citizens of our state, that I'm promoting agriculture, I'm promoting my other arm, which is the consumer services component, and making sure that I live up to the promises that the people of our state voted me for.
So that's a possibility. Is there anything that's not a possibility? Have you ruled out any runs for office? For example, for Senate next year, have you ruled out a run for Senate?
Yeah, I'm not running for the U.S. Senate. We're going to have some terrific candidates that are going to be running for the U.S. Senate. I think that not only the state of Florida, but the country is asking for Marco Rubio to be out. And so we've got a lot of support across the country to make sure that we've got new leadership from the state of Florida going to Washington, D.C. And I have complete confidence that the names that I've been hearing circulating out there and are going to be able to accomplish that.
Almost exactly a year ago, on March 20th of 2020, you called for Governor Ron DeSantis to issue a statewide stay-at-home order. He did. He later reopened Florida's economy about 6 months later. He has never issued a statewide mask mandate. What things, in your mind, do you think he has specifically done wrong?
How much time do we have? You know, I think he's done a lot of things wrong, and mostly it's coming from a lack of leadership. You know, when you're dealing with a pandemic of this nature, or dealing with a crisis, you want the people that are at the top of your leadership track in their state and our country to stand up, to take ownership for issues that are happening, work together with people, be transparent, be approachable. And the governor didn't do any of this. He went out this alone, barely talks to the congressional delegation, didn't talk to his cabinet, didn't talk to experts, you know, believed that he knew better. And so what he did was he made this very chaotic, very confusing to the people of our state, didn't know what to follow, didn't know what to listen to, because one minute he was writing this order, and then the next day he was changing the order. So your local governments didn't know what was going on, empowered them and then didn't empower them, and has gone back and forth. The data that's come out from our nursing homes, from our prisons, I mean, how many media companies have to sue the governor to get information? And when that happens, people start to distrust him and the government. And in a time like this, when we're needing information, when we're needing clear, concise leadership, he's done nothing of the sort. He's lashed out at people who have either criticized him or merely asked questions. If it doesn't follow his narrative, that they are bygones to him and never to be heard from again. And look, we haven't seen our Surgeon General. We're in a healthcare pandemic and haven't seen our Surgeon General in 9+ months. Maybe he's doing some side meetings here and there, but we're not hearing from him. And so with this lack of leadership, and even the mask mandate, it's wearing a mask. This should have never been politicized. This isn't a Democrat or Republican issue. This is talking about people's own safety, and it's protecting your family members. It's protecting your friends, your coworkers if you're back in the office. Being able to operate businesses and making sure that your employees and your patrons are safe. This is just simple common sense actions that he refused to do because he wanted to believe that he was right and that he was, had all the answers.
Well, let me interject right there, because you bring up some issues that others have about possibly a lack of empathy, transparency, also usurping local governments and municipalities. But on being right, Florida's death rate and case rate from COVID are about the same as California's. They're better than New York's. Given those outcomes, why was he not right about the economy and about schools?
Yeah, first off, just because we're less than others doesn't mean that he didn't do things wrong. And I think the other part of this is we still lost 33,000 people in our state. 82,000 people were hospitalized. 2 million people have been sick and have tested positive. That's not something to brag about. That's something that you should be saying, listen, this is what we think we should be doing. This is how we're doing this, but please make sure you're still social distancing. Please make sure you're getting your vaccines, you're wearing your mask, you're taking protocols to make sure you're safe. But he's not doing that. So what's happened is the local governments are the ones who stepped up. The local governments are the ones who put the mask mandates in place, who had stay-at-home orders that were earlier than the governors, doing curfews. It was our local businesses who, because they saw a lack of leadership from the governor, they took upon themselves to put protocols in place from their own businesses. That's the success story. It is from our local governments and from our businesses, not the governor. And the governor wants to take credit for this, but that's not where credit is due. Credit is due to our local governments and people in business communities taking responsibility. I mean, look at even just Publix. Publix, had the mask, you weren't allowed to come into the stores. They changed how you walk through the stores, distances from the cashiers. That was Publix who did that. That wasn't the governor. And so I think we need to really understand that the local businesses and the local governments are the true heroes of these stories.
When we come back, more from my interview with Nikki Fried. We dig into the potential drawbacks of legalizing marijuana when Battleground Florida returns. Welcome back to Battleground Florida. More now from my one-on-one with Florida Agriculture Commissioner Nikki Fried. We discuss bills that have been taking over state legislatures across the nation, not just here in Florida, about transgender women playing sports. There are several bills in the state legislature that would ban transgender women from participating in women's sports. Should they be allowed to compete together?
It seems like we keep moving backwards in our state. This is about equality. And, I have friends and friends that have children that are transgender, and we have to give them equal access and opportunities. This is something that, a choice that they're making, something that, that they feel is the right for them to go through, and to prohibit them from getting involved in equal access to we're going back to not allowing, black individuals from voting. I mean, that's how we're moving backwards in our state.
But let me stop you there. Do you not feel that in some cases that those women would have an advantage over women who were born biological women at birth?
That's something that it's an individual decision, and but I do not think that the state has any role to be playing in this conversation. That's up to a league, and that's up to a family, and that's up to an individual, and to that community. But this is not something that a state government should not be interfering with things like this. It's not the role of the government. The government is supposed to provide, policing and health care. This is not a place for the government to interfere with an individual's personal choices and decisions.
So, but you don't think, so I just want to make sure to pin you down on that. So for high school athletes or even college athletes who may be competing in these situations, the reason why I'm asking, there are many Democrats, I think, who are kind of going on the other side on this issue and say that this might present an unfair playing field for women who are born biological women at birth. Do you not?
But then you're going to the opposite side. Now, are they supposed to, you know, are they just not supposed to compete athletically? You know, are you asking them then to compete as men? You know, so you're sitting in a situation where you are now not allowing an individual to participate in other activities that their peers are participating in. Do I think that there should be standards? But that should be across the board. You know, a certain kind of standards for same thing on you know, steroids. You know, you can't be taking steroids and be an athlete. And so I think, you know, looking at each individual sport, but by preventing somebody from participating, that's discrimination.
I want to shift gears now and talk about the marijuana industry. You are a former marijuana industry lobbyist. You've been a big proponent of legalization. It's possible next year on the ballot we could see a constitutional amendment that would legalize recreational marijuana if 60% of Florida voters vote for it. On Saturday, you tweeted, "Legalizing cannabis solves lots of problems and creates none." But since legalization in Colorado, more adults and children are coming into the emergency room with marijuana-related illnesses. Chronic use has been linked to mental illness. Early adolescent use is linked to changes in brain development. There are cancer-causing elements, including tar, that are deposited on the lungs. Do you think legalizing it will create more people with these problems?
Absolutely not. You know, first of all, you know, a lot of those statistics and a lot of the data that is being spewed about on the anti-legalization front is just inaccurate. It's just not accurate to begin with. But
do you think any of those things are inaccurate?
I think that if a state puts in together a legalization plan that really has, you know, strict penalties for selling underneath a certain age, you know, whether it's 18 or 21, same thing with alcohol. You know, you're supposed to have parameters in place and penalties for those that are doing it wrong. And the other thing is making sure that there's standards, which is why I fought so hard for hemp legalization and for the regulation of CBD products, to make sure that there's no lead, that we're testing our vape pens to make sure that some of the things that are being inhaled is not safe for consumption. Making sure that when we're doing edible rules, that there is a clear amount of THC and milligrams in each of the edibles. That's when you started seeing problems in California and Colorado when they didn't create these regulatory standards. And so you saw in California them selling, you know, a chocolate bar, you know, the 120 milligrams in the chocolate bar, which we know if you're not doing it right is not equally distributed amongst the entire chocolate bar. And if you're not breaking it down, somebody doesn't understand that 120 milligrams is not what you should be taking.
Right.
And so part of it is education, making sure the right regulations are in place, but the benefits of legalization outweighs those small issues that can be fixed by any smart regulatory oversight program. I mean, talking about the criminal justice reform, I mean, the amount of money that we would save not incarcerating individuals with possession charges, decreasing, you know, the court system, the public defender, state attorneys, letting our police force actually, you know, going after hard criminals, lack of necessity for our jail system, economic boost, an opportunity to tax a product that can bring in revenue for education, for affordable housing, for infrastructure here in our state, job growth, a decrease in our healthcare costs. I mean, it is a win-win-win. It is an increase in revenue and a decrease in all of these other issues that really are huge burdens on our state, our criminal justice side as well as our healthcare side.
There are a lot of great arguments for legalization. I just want to focus for a moment, though, on the young developing brain. That's where scientists seem to say the biggest impact would come if more young people started smoking marijuana as a result of legalization, that it's very deleterious to their developing brains, even up to 21, 23, 25 years old in some cases.
You know, I want to say something that probably most parents don't want to hear. If your child wants to get their hands on marijuana, they're going to do it now. And the same thing during prohibition of alcohol. If people wanted to get alcohol, they were going to get it. The thing to do is to make sure that we regulate it, because if the children are getting the access to marijuana now, who knows what they're getting? Who knows if it's laced with something? Who knows if what they're smoking is too high? But if we regulate things, one, you're creating an environment, and it's not on every corner. I mean, it's not California, but actually doing it in a smart manner. One, you're making sure the products that are being out there on the market that are safe, and for consumption purposes, and you're putting in all of these parameters to make sure that the kids are not getting access to it. Because if we destroy the illegal marketplace by doing this smartly, that means not overtaxing this, by having licenses for all sectors of cultivation, manufacturing, processing, research, distribution, retail, and you create this environment that is beneficial, more people are accessing it, then you get rid of the illegal marketplace. When you get rid of the illegal marketplace, that is where most of the injuries come from, is in any of the illnesses is from the illegal marketplace. The legal marketplace is regulated, it's safe for consumption, and yet putting those legal parameters in place to make sure that our children are not getting access to it. And then even at home, people have said, well, if it's at home, your kid's going to get access to it. It's the same thing as alcohol. Make sure you're doing your job as a parent, teaching your children that this is not acceptable for kids, and making sure you're putting it away and locking it away that it's not accessible to them.
More with Agriculture Commissioner Nikki Fried when my one-on-one with her continues. Battleground Florida, back in a moment. Welcome back to Battleground Florida. More now from my one-on-one with Florida Agriculture Commissioner Nikki Fried. You've called for a federal investigation into Governor Ron DeSantis's pop-up vaccine sites. There are allegations, obviously, and some evidence behind the fact that some of them were exclusive to wealthy members of Floridian society, or set up in their neighborhoods, or exclusive to 2 zip codes in the case of Manatee County. Do you think that the governor had a direct role in setting those up and doing that?
He's the governor of the state of Florida. The vaccines roll through him and roll through his office. And by allowing the state to have no plan and have no distribution mechanism in place, he allowed this to happen. And the fact of the matter is, he went to Manatee County, and knowing that this was an exclusive 2 zip codes, there's no other place in the entire state of Florida where you can only get the vaccines if you live in those zip codes, and went to that county and welcomed the vaccines in this pop-up location, talked about how great it was, but meanwhile there was only 2 zip codes that were eligible to receive those vaccines. And we also know that now that the VIP list that was created by that county commissioner, I've also called for her to be removed, and she has said she heard directly from the governor and the governor's office. And so if he didn't have direct involvement, then somebody directly that works for him does. And I'm sorry, but as a leader of our state, the buck always stops with me. And if I had somebody in my office that was doing something like that without my knowledge, one, they would be fired on the spot. Make a very strong statement that this is what was unacceptable, and this is not happening, and this person got fired. Instead, he has continued to push it off and push blame someplace else. It was this person, or it was Baptist Health, or whatever it was. He has never taken ownership of anything. Anything. He blames everybody else, and the fact of the matter is, there was campaign contributions that were given to him within a close proximity, especially the ones in Ocean Reef down in Key Largo, within a very close proximity to when those vaccines got rolled out. And they were diverted from Baptist Health. And so either one, he had direct knowledge of it, or because the fact that he did nothing to prevent something like this from happening, he is directly responsible for this inequality of the distribution of the vaccines in our state.
Agriculture Commissioner Nikki Fried, thank you so much for joining us on Battleground Florida.
Thanks for having me.
Stay with us. Battleground Florida will continue in a moment with a preview of Meet the Press. Thank you for joining us here on Battleground Florida. Meet the Press is next. Our next newscast tonight at 6. Have a great day.